I'll never forget the first time I saw that bright yellow paper sticking out of my mailbox. It was folded neatly, the words HOA violation notice printed in bold at the top. At first, I thought it was some kind of mistake. I had just mowed my lawn 2 days before. My trash bins were neatly tucked away, my shutters painted last spring, and my driveway spotless. Still, the paper screamed, "Violation. Grass over 3 inches. Fine. $50. I laughed it off. Maybe they're mixing me up with a neighbor, I muttered, crumpling the paper in my hand. But something about it felt off. The slip hadn't come in the mail. There was no postage, no envelope. It looked like someone had walked up in the middle of the night and shoved it straight into my mailbox. I brushed it aside at first. Life was busy. I had work deadlines, my daughter's school recital, and a leaky faucet that refused to stop dripping. But just a week later, another slip appeared. This one claimed, "Unapproved exterior decor. Fine, $75. I stood in my driveway staring at the paper, confused. The unapproved decor they listed was the hanging flower basket by my front porch, a simple metal bracket with pink petunias. Every other house on the street had something similar. I walked over to my neighbor, Susan. She's lived here longer than me and knows everyone's business. "Hey, Susan, you ever get one of these violation slips? They're not mailed. They just show up." She frowned. "No, that's strange. Usually the HOA mails official notices. Certified sometimes. Not whatever that is." My stomach tightened. If Susan hadn't seen one, maybe this wasn't official. But then, who was leaving them? The weeks went on and more slips appeared. One said my mailbox was faded and unapproved color. Another claimed my car had been parked in the driveway too long. Every time I pulled one out, my blood pressure spiked. And then I noticed the pattern. They always appeared overnight, never during the day. That's when it clicked. Someone was sneaking around, shoving them into my mailbox when no one was watching. One night, while brushing my teeth, I caught myself staring out the window toward the street. The air outside was still. Porch lights glowed faintly. My mailbox stood there at the end of the driveway like a silent soldier. I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching, or worse, planning their next move. I didn't know it then, but this was just the beginning. Because the moment I decided to set up my doorbell camera, the whole truth came tumbling out. I ordered the camera the next day. Just a simple, motion-activated doorbell cam. Nothing fancy, but enough to catch whoever thought they could play secret cop in the middle of the night. My wife, Emily, wasn't thrilled about the idea. "You think someone's really sneaking around just to leave you fake HOA slips?" she asked, raising an eyebrow. "Yes," I said firmly, "and I'm going to prove it." The first night after installing it, I barely slept. Every creak of the house, every rustle outside made me sit up in bed. But when I checked the footage the next morning, nothing. Just a raccoon waddling across the driveway. The second night, same thing. My camera caught a neighbor walking their dog at 11 p.m., but no mysterious visitor. By the third night, I was starting to doubt myself. Maybe I was paranoid. Maybe the HOA had changed the way they delivered violations. But then came night 4. It was 2:13 a.m. when the motion alert buzzed my phone. Half asleep, I opened the app and froze. There, in grainy night vision footage, was a figure walking straight up to my mailbox. A tall man in a dark hoodie, baseball cap pulled low. He reached into his jacket, pulled out a folded slip of paper, and shoved it inside. I sat up in bed, heart hammering. There it is. Proof. I rewound the footage. The man lingered for a moment, looking up and down the street before walking away quickly toward the cul-de-sac. The next morning, I found the paper waiting just as expected. Violation. Holiday lights still up. Fine, $100. It wasn't even true. My lights had been down since January. But I didn't care about the paper anymore. I had the evidence. Someone Some neighbor was doing this deliberately. That evening, I showed Emily the footage. Her jaw dropped. "Oh my God, that's not official HOA at all. That's someone harassing us." I nodded, anger burning through me. "Exactly, and I'm going to find out who." The next few days, I studied the footage frame by frame. The man's walk looked familiar. His height, his posture, and then it hit me. It looked exactly like Richard, one of the HOA board members. Richard was in his late 40s, always strutting around in polo shirts with the HOA logo stitched on the chest. He was the type who measured people's grass with a ruler. More than once I'd caught him giving me dirty looks when I parked my truck in the driveway. But why would he sneak around at night like some vigilante? Why not just issue official letters? That question gnawed at me. So I decided to set a trap. I angled a second camera from the living room window, covering the side view. I left my porch light off, and then I waited. 3 nights later, he came again. Same hoodie, same cap, but this time the side camera caught a clear glimpse of his face as he turned toward the light of a passing car. It was him, Richard. And that's when I realized this wasn't just petty harassment. This was a board member abusing his position, and he thought no one would ever catch him. But he had forgotten one thing. Cameras don't blink. The next morning, I couldn't keep it to myself. I showed the footage to Susan. She gasped, hand over her mouth. "Richard? Are you serious? He's the one doing this?" "Yes," I said, "and I've got him on camera. Twice." Word spread fast. By the weekend, half the neighborhood had heard about the midnight violation man. Some people were shocked, others weren't surprised at all. One neighbor, Tom, shook his head. "I always knew Richard had it out for folks. He fined me last year for having my recycling bin out too long. Maybe he's been slipping me fake notices too." It was like a dam had burst. Suddenly, everyone had a story about Richard. Petty fines, random warnings, threats about towing cars. And now, everyone was second-guessing whether their own violations had even been real. Emily warned me to be careful. "If you go after him without proof, the board will close ranks. They'll protect him. You need to do this right." She was right. I needed a plan. So, I drafted a letter to the entire HOA board. No accusations, not yet. Just a request for a special meeting to discuss irregularities in violation notices. When the board responded, they scheduled the meeting for the following Tuesday. In the days leading up to it, tension buzzed through the neighborhood. I noticed Richard driving by my house more often than usual, his truck slowing down like he was checking on me. Once, I caught him staring straight at my camera. I didn't flinch. Let him know I was watching too. Tuesday night came and the community center was packed. More people showed up than I'd ever seen at an HOA meeting. You could feel the curiosity, the anger, the anticipation. The board sat at the front, 5 members behind a long table. Richard was in the middle, arms crossed, jaw tight. When it was my turn to speak, I stood, heart pounding, but voice steady. "I've received multiple violation notices shoved directly into my mailbox at night. No postage, no envelope. So I installed cameras." A murmur swept the crowd. "And this is what I found." I held my phone up, screen glowing with the footage. Gasps echoed through the room as Richard's face appeared in the freeze frame, caught red-handed. People whispered. Some pointed. Others shook their heads in disbelief. Richard's face went red. He opened his mouth, but no words came out. And that's when the room erupted. Neighbors shouted questions, some demanded answers, others demanded his resignation on the spot. The board chair tried to gavel the room into order, but it was chaos. And me? I just stood there, phone in hand, knowing this was only the beginning. Because what happened next would shock us all. I remember standing in my driveway the morning after another violation slip appeared, this time tucked under the windshield wiper of my car, like some sort of ticket.
It was almost comical, the way they always managed to find me. No matter if my mailbox was locked or if I was out late, the slips were always there by sunrise. But something felt different this time. My hands were trembling as I peeled it off. The note wasn't just about a weed in the lawn or a trash can left out overnight. No, this one read, "You've been warned. Next time, we take action." It wasn't signed. There was no HOA header, just those words typed and printed on plain paper. I felt my stomach drop. My wife looked at me and said quietly, "This isn't about weeds anymore. Someone's trying to intimidate us." That was the exact moment I decided I was done playing defense. I went online, ordered the highest-rated doorbell camera system I could find, plus 2 additional floodlight cams for the corners of the house. The boxes arrived in less than 48 hours. By that weekend, I had every angle of my property covered. And the first night I armed them, I sat in my living room, heart pounding, staring at the live feed on my phone. It was 11 p.m., midnight, 1 a.m., nothing. Just the hum of crickets and the occasional passing car. Then, at 2:13 a.m. sharp, the motion alert chimed. I tapped the notification with shaking fingers, and there, in crisp 1080p night vision, was a shadowy figure walking up my driveway holding a stack of papers. The person glanced left, then right, then crouched at my mailbox. My pulse was racing. I leaned forward, my breath caught in my throat. And then, clear as day, the figure looked up, right into the camera. It was Karen Whitfield, the HOA president herself. She was wearing sweatpants, a hoodie pulled up over her head, and latex gloves, like she was trying to disguise herself. But there was no mistaking that face, those sharp features. She slipped the violation into my box, tapped the side like she was sealing a deal, and walked briskly away. I whispered out loud, "Gotcha." But little did I know, capturing her on camera was only the beginning. Because the fallout, it was going to rock the entire neighborhood. The following morning, I barely slept. I kept replaying the footage over and over, zooming in, confirming it wasn't some trick of the light. There she was, our HOA president, sneaking around in the middle of the night, planting anonymous violation notices. By 9 a.m., I had already emailed the entire HOA board a copy of the video file, with a short subject line. Explains a lot, doesn't it? Within an hour, my phone was buzzing. First, it was George, one of the quieter board members. His voice was low, almost a whisper. "Listen," he said, "I'm not supposed to say this, but we've had our suspicions. Karen's been taking things into her own hands lately, but nobody had proof." Proof. That was the golden word. By noon, word had spread across the entire neighborhood. I stepped outside and could feel the stares, the hushed conversations. One neighbor, Mrs. Porter, actually came up to me and patted my arm. "We saw the video, dear. That was shocking. Thank you for exposing it." And then came the official email. Karen had scheduled an emergency HOA meeting for that Friday night. Mandatory attendance for board members, open to homeowners. I knew right then it was going to be war. Friday arrived, and the clubhouse parking lot was packed tighter than I'd ever seen it. People were standing outside the doors, murmuring with folded arms. The air felt electric, tense. Inside, the fluorescent lights hummed. Karen sat at the head of the long table, shoulders squared, jaw tight, a forced smile plastered on her face. "Thank you all for coming," she began, her voice dripping with artificial calm. "It seems there has been some confusion." Confusion. That's what she called it. Before she could continue, I stood up from the crowd and raised my phone. No confusion here. We all saw the video. You've been sneaking around in the middle of the night, putting fake violations in people's mailboxes. That's not just shady, it's harassment. The room erupted. People shouted, some demanding answers, others booing. A few tried to calm things down, but the energy was out of control. Karen slammed her gavel against the table. Order! Order! Her face was red now. That footage was taken out of context. I was checking for mailbox tampering. That's all. Mailbox tampering? At 2 a.m., wearing gloves? Give us a break. Another neighbor yelled, "You've been targeting people for months. We knew it." The meeting spiraled. Voices overlapped, fingers pointed. At one point, someone actually stood on a chair and shouted, "We need a vote to remove her." Karen tried to regain control, but it was slipping through her hands like water. Finally, George, the quieter board member, stood up. His voice was steady, firm. "I move to call a special vote of no confidence in the president." The clubhouse went silent for a moment. Then cheers broke out. Karen's jaw clenched. She looked around the room, her eyes darting like a cornered animal. "You can't do this. I built this HOA. You need me." But the crowd wasn't having it. And as the meeting dissolved into chaos, I sat back and thought, this isn't over. Not by a long shot. Because the vote was scheduled for the following week, and the days leading up to it, they were going to be explosive. The days before the vote felt surreal. My phone didn't stop buzzing. Neighbors thanking me, some asking for advice, others nervous about possible retaliation. Rumors flew about Karen plotting something dramatic to save her position. I kept checking my cameras every night, half expecting her to show up again, but she didn't. Not once. Maybe she knew the cameras had ended her midnight reign. Finally, the night of the special meeting arrived. The clubhouse was beyond capacity this time. Standing room only, people pressed shoulder to shoulder, buzzing with anticipation. I could feel the tension in my chest as the board members took their seats. Karen walked in last. She looked different, less polished. Her hair wasn't perfectly styled, her clothes were wrinkled, her eyes carried dark circles. For the first time, she looked human, and maybe even scared. George called the meeting to order. His voice was steady, but you could feel the weight of the moment. "We are here," he said, "to vote on whether Karen Whitfield should remain president of this HOA." Karen stood, clutching the table. "Before you vote," she said, her voice cracking slightly, "I want to explain. I only wanted to keep this neighborhood beautiful. I may have gone too far, but everything I did was for the community." Murmurs rippled through the crowd, some sympathetic, most not. Then George opened the floor for the vote. Hands shot up, one after another, row after row. When it was over, the result was undeniable. Karen was out. The room erupted in applause, some people actually hugging each other. I sat back, relief flooding through me. But then something happened that I'll never forget. Karen, instead of storming out, sank back into her chair. Her face was pale, her hands trembling. For a long moment, she just sat there. Finally, she whispered, "I'm sorry." And for a split second, the room went quiet. But the truth was, the damage had already been done. Later, As I walked home under the glow of the street lamps, I thought about everything that had happened. The late-night slips, the fear, the cameras, the reveal. And I realized something. Power only works if people don't question it. Karen thought she could control the neighborhood with intimidation and secrecy, but cameras don't blink. And truth, once revealed, can't be hidden again. I turned off my phone, looked around at the quiet houses, and finally felt at peace. Because